Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's Rabbi Stephen here. It's a little cool, a little warm weather, so we're dressing down a little bit. But still coming to you with this week's 10-minute Torah. This week's portion, Bahalotcha, or Bahalotcha if you happen to be Ashkenazic. And basically that talks about the menorah. So this particular portion opens up with the discussion of the menorah, of the Levites getting involved in the menorah. Now, the point of it is that every Israelite had something to do with the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was the physical representation of Judaism. You know, we have the Shekhinah, God's presence. You know, we have all the miracles in the desert, the manna and the water. And we're going to come to that in a minute. There's a very interesting point in this particular portion about that. But Aaron was feeling a little left out. The Levites were feeling a little left out. So God said, you know, Aaron, you and your ancestors, the Kohanim and the Kohanim Gadolim, the head priests and the head priests, are the ones that are going to be lighting the menorah. Now, there's also what a lot of sages feel is a veiled reference to the festival of Hanukkah. Now, again, we're about 1,500 years too early here, or maybe 13, whatever it is. And people are thinking, well, how does that tie in? If you look at some things in Israel, some buildings, some institutions, some coinage, some different engravings, it seems like the menorah would be the go-to symbol of Judaism versus the Star of David. Now, the Star of David also has some connotations. And by the way, the Star of David has not been used all the time as a symbol of Judaism. It's just been recent, maybe 400 or 500 years, which in our history of 3,500 years is pretty recent. But it's really the menorah that has been the centerpiece of Judaism. And when you look at the menorah, now let's define our terms here. We're going to use the term menorah for the menorah that was in the Great Temple. It had a stem in the middle, and then they had 3 branches on either side, so it was 7 branched. As opposed to the Hanukkah menorah, which we're going to call the Chanukia, which actually had 9. You had the shamas in the middle or at the side, and then you had the other 8 branches, one for each night, one for the different stems. And what they say about the menorah, it says that the menorah was really basically hammered out of 1 ingot of gold. And some people say that, Moses couldn't conceive of it. God was trying to explain it to him, that you'd have the parts on the bottom that looked like olives, and then it came out with the candles, and how the receptacles had to be angled just so that all the lights went kind of, not really, but kind of toward the center. And he just couldn't conceive it, so God said, look, I'll do it for you. And, where that menorah is today, who knows? Some people think it's in the catacombs beneath the Holy Mount. Some people think it's somewhere else. Maybe the Babylonians or the Persians took it, wherever. So the menorah is really kind of an interesting symbol for Judaism. And by the way, the point of Aaron and the Chanukia, okay, the fact that it's the reference goes, I'm getting ahead of myself as I usually get really excited. Aaron's ancestors were, in fact, the Hasmoneans, Judah and the Maccabees. That was the family that was minding the temple when all this happened with the Assyrians. When the Assyrians came down and, or the Seleucids came in and destroyed the temple or mashed it up or whatever they did to it. And the Hasmoneans, the Jews then, were the ones that were rebuilding it. The Hasmoneans were direct descendants of Aaron the Kohen. So this menorah is not just a symbol of the temple, but it's also a symbol of Judaism. It's a symbol, it's a representation of the Kohanim, and of course the rest of us as well. It really has a very intense meaning. So the meaning of the menorah, okay, you had the 1 single stem in the middle, then you had the 3 on either side. The sides on the left represented the material, the sides on the right represented the spiritual. And all of them were facing the middle, which was, of course, God, Torah, what have you. There's a lot of meanings to this. But the point is, and this is something that kind of ties into our discussion at Friday night sermon about spirituality and religion, Again, here's the physical manifestation, a physical representation of Judaism with the material, maybe the rituals, maybe the fact that we're involved in this life in pursuits, material pursuits. But then you also had the spiritual pursuits on the other side, on the right side. And that was where, you put your mind and your heart and your soul into cleaving to Hashem, cleaving to His commandments, wanting to do the commandments. So, hence the symbolism of the menorah and, of course, the Hanukkah, which, we see in later ages. So, in this particular portion, we start to see more and more of the grumbling of the Israelites. Now, we saw some of it earlier in Exodus when Moses was up on Sinai, and he was getting the Ten Commandments, and people were thinking, gosh, has it been 40 days already? Where is he? Or was it 40 days counted from the night? Was it 40 days counted from the morning? They couldn't get a handle on it. But the point is, here are these people out in the wilderness. They needed to be babysat because they were only used to slavery. They were used to being at the whim and the will of the Egyptian taskmasters, told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and they weren't really used to their freedom. So where's Moses? And that kind of led to their need for that physical representation, the golden calf, and that kind of started a cascade of things. So here we are in Numbers. One of the issues that's dealt with in Numbers is the various grumbling of the Israelites, the rebellions that they had with Korach. We see that in a few weeks in the portion, and here they're like, we want meat. Not, hey Moses, it'd be nice, what's for breakfast? Manna. Oh, manna. What's for lunch? Manna. Didn't we have that for breakfast? Yeah. Well, what's for dinner? Manna. Can't we have something different? Let's go out for Chinese tonight, Chinese manna, maybe with some Indian manna with some curry and some turmeric on it, whatever it was, instead of the coriander. So, but, the people were grumbling. They were discontented. Never mind that they could have made it from Egypt to the land of Canaan, as it was called back then, in 3 days or even 11 days or whatever it is. They'd be there, they'd conquer the land, they'd settle, they'd get land, they'd be able to farm, they'd have, other stuff besides the manna. Of course they'd have to work for it, but, oh well, right? And they start grumbling. They weren't content. So God says, I'll give them meat. I'll give them meat till it's coming out of their ears, their mouths, He said that. That's what's in the Torah. That's what it says. I'll give them meat till it's coming out of all their orifices. And next thing you know, a wind blows and there's a bunch of quail. And there's the quail, and the people pick up the quail, and most of the people were happy to have the meat. The grumblers were, they died with the meat in their mouths. That's what happens, when you get God angry, when you piss off Hashem. And it's like, okay, you got to understand that this was just temporary, guys. This is just to sustain you in the desert. Once you get into Canaan, you make whatever you want. It doesn't matter, right? But the people were grumbling. They said, oh, we miss Egypt. We miss the free fish. We miss the free food. Yeah, free food, sure. You're working 16 hours a day. You got people whipping you if you don't work hard enough. And you miss that. You miss the meat. You have free fish. Yeah, there was a lot of fish, but, so it's the old story, the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So to top things off, then Miriam and Aaron start to get involved in Moses' personal business. They're like, Moses had to have this intense situation of being holy. And because of that, his relations, let's call it, with his wife was, maybe not as much as, well, apparently Miriam and Aaron thought they should be. They thought that he was neglecting his wife, and, he's a prophet, and he's got all this stuff, and, Zipporah's out there, and she's not really being, getting her due attention from her man. And Miriam starts grumbling. She starts going to Aaron, and then she starts talking to other people. Next thing you know, she's got this white crust all over her body. Saras, that's what happens when you start gossiping, when you start talking, what they call it today, talking smack about people. We used to call it gossiping or just shooting your mouth off. And yes, Miriam was kind of a prophetess. She's not mentioned a lot in the Torah, but when she is, it's in very significant events, like leading the woman, to song of praise after the Sea of Reeds. They crossed the Sea of Reeds. Because of her righteousness, they found water whenever they needed it. So, it may not lay it out in detail how important she is, but by the fact that she was responsible for, or it was because of her presence, that water showed up when it needed to, says a lot about it. But she was not immune from the wrath of Hashem when she started gossiping and talebearing. So, the moral of the story there, folks, and we see the grumbling and we see the resentment, is that, it's not about being thankful just because. You got to pay attention to what you have. And if you don't have it, you got to put it into perspective and say, do I need it? Do I want it? How do I get it? Instead of grumbling. We talk about having the miracles that God gives us every day. Be thankful for that. It's okay to desire things, but you have to go about it in the right way. There's a right way to communicate. There's a right way to get things, and I think that's what a lot of this is all about. Anyway, see you in services. Glad we had some great services this week, had some great musical accompaniment, and congratulations to the new board. And for all the men, hope you had a great Father's Day, and we'll see you in synagogue this weekend. Shabbat Shalom.